What are the dangers brought to China by the semiconductor cooperation between the U.S. and Japan? Japan's siege is more ferocious than that of the United States. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Commerce have made solemn representations regarding the dangers brought to China by semiconductor cooperation between the U.S. and Japan. So, what are the dangers brought to China by this cooperation? The cooperation between the U.S. and Japan on semiconductors has three distinctive features, each of which brings significant harm to China's economic development. In particular, Japan's restrictions on semiconductor manufacturing are particularly vicious, and their intensity surpasses that of the United States. Therefore, this has caused strong dissatisfaction from China, which is urging Japan to correct its wrong actions and maintain the stability of the global industrial and supply chains. Firstly, Japan's restrictions on semiconductor manufacturing in China have surpassed those of any other country. In January of this year, Japan joined the United States in imposing restrictions on exporting advanced chip manufacturing equipment to China. In March, the Japanese government announced restrictions on the export of 23 semiconductor manufacturing technologies and equipment. They have just released specific restrictions, which include mid to low-end semiconductor technologies, and mature technologies have also been included in export control. More than 10 restricted Japanese companies will affect China's production of key chips, possibly widely affecting products such as washing machines in China. Western media stated that Japan's actions may have a more severe impact on China's manufacturing industry than previous measures taken by the United States, even claiming that it will strangle China's future development of advanced semiconductor chip new processes and cause China's semiconductor technology to stop at the 14 nanometers process. Secondly, the semiconductor cooperation between the U.S. and Japan may trigger the broken window effect, which may cause other U.S. allies to be hostile towards China. Japan's export restrictions on semiconductors to China are more severe than those in the United States and are likely to prompt South Korea, the Netherlands, and China's Taiwan to further cooperate with the U.S. strategy, substantially reducing the supply of chips, technology, and equipment to the Chinese market. This will bring enormous difficulties to China's independent and self-reliant semiconductor manufacturing and development. The United States, Japan, South Korea, the Netherlands, and China's Taiwan dominate the semiconductor industry chain, and reducing supply to the Chinese market may impose a high cost on the global semiconductor industry. Thirdly, the U.S.'s long-arm jurisdiction may expand from the semiconductor field to other fields. After proposing a roadmap for semiconductor cooperation, U.S. and Japanese trade officials have further promised to strengthen cooperation in technologies such as artificial intelligence, AI, biotechnology, and quantum computers to promote bilateral economic security cooperation and work towards de-risking China. Whether this discriminatory and exclusive small circle cooperation will spread to other technology and industry fields like a virus is worth observing. It's a fact that China is Japan's largest overseas market, accounting for 40% of Japan's semiconductor equipment exports. Is Japan not worried about smashing its own rice bowl with such crazy export restrictions? Japan's strict restrictions on semiconductor exports to China are like gambling. The BBC believes that Japan's massive semiconductor export control will harm the market expansion of Japanese companies and reduce Japan's global competitiveness. Japanese businesspeople also believe that Japan's lack of a sufficiently large chip market domestically and export restrictions will be a blow to Japanese chip equipment manufacturers. So why is Japan taking such a risk? First of all, the Biden administration is significantly elevating Japan's international status, which has left Prime Minister Kishida excited. Japan is the most powerful military force among U.S. allies in the Asia-Pacific region, and, as the U.S. sees Japan as a pillar country in its Indo-Pacific strategy, Japan also has ambitions to become a military power and a normal country. Biden's pan-security strategy is military-related as well as related to advanced semiconductor manufacturing, and Japan has therefore used the pan-security logic to replace market logic and restrict exports of semiconductor technology and equipment to China more severely, showing loyalty to its American master. Also, Japan has a strong foundation in the semiconductor industry, with relatively cheap land, relatively low-cost labor, and abundant water resources for manufacturing semiconductors. The Japanese government is also willing to invest in supporting the semiconductor industry. In addition, the U.S. is good at designing while Japan excels in manufacturing, and as long as Japan cooperates with the U.S. in export control to restrict China, it is likely that Japan will become an emerging world center for semiconductor research and development and manufacturing. In short, Japan has tied its semiconductor policy to the U.S. strategy, seeking to let the U.S. eat meat and drink soup. This bet is quite large and a bit risky. Today, Japan restricts China, and tomorrow, the Chinese market will be closed to Japan. Even U.S. chip scientists and business owners have warned the U.S. government that if it continues to restrict the export of technology to China, it will face a serious risk of harming its own technology industry. If China cannot buy U.S. chip equipment, they will make it themselves, so America needs to be careful. China is the most important market in the technology industry, and losing this market would cause U.S. technology industries to decline. Additionally, the U.S. will not let Japan become dominant in semiconductors and will use it to blackmail America. Although the U.S. imposes various restrictions on China, it still leaves room for trade between Chinese and American semiconductor companies without giving up export control measures. American companies can apply for special licenses to continue selling semiconductors or related manufacturing equipment to China. Japan, on the other hand, cannot break free from the shackles of restrictions on China's exports and must rely on the US's eye. Moreover, Japan was once a leader in semiconductors in the 1980s and was on the verge of replacing the US. However, under an agreement between the US and Japan, the semiconductor center quickly shifted to South Korea and China's Taiwan. Will Japan's current aggressive policy on semiconductors cause a repeat of this historical tragedy? It is highly likely.